to Inside the UBC. I'm Jim Graden, the creator of the Ultimate Body Challenge. What we're going to talk a little bit about today is injury prevention. You know, having been working in martial arts fitness now for close to 20 years, there's a lot of common injuries. There's ones that keep coming up, and there's one that's happening a lot more than it used to because of the onslaught of mixed martial arts. And what's happening is when I first created the UBC, most people just saw boxing or kickboxing. And any boxer or kickboxer utilizes boxing gloves. So when people went to the heavy bags, that's what they would use. Now people are seeing people in mixed martial arts and they want to go to the mixed martial arts gloves to be used on the heavy bag. Well guys, I'm telling you, mixed martial arts fighters, when they hit the heavy bag for, to get in shape for a fight, don't use mixed martial arts gloves. They use boxing or bag gloves because that's what they're designed for. Mixed martial arts gloves are not designed to hit a heavy bag over long periods of time. And if you utilize mixed martial arts gloves, you're probably going to end up with some injuries to your wrist or your hand. They're just not designed for that amount of impact over and over and over again. It's just like when a boxer climbs into the ring. He fights maybe with 8 or 10 ounce gloves, but he trains with 16 or 18 ounce gloves to protect his hands, to add weight, to make the workout more challenging. So, number one, make sure that when you're hitting the heavy bags in the UBC program, that you're utilizing a minimum of a 10 ounce boxing glove. Or I have here, these are 12 ounce. That's a good weight to go. I usually utilize a 16 to even an 18 ounce glove because I'm going to try to add resistance to make the workout a little bit more challenging. And you should do the same. If you have a 10 ounce pair of gloves and you're kind of gotten used to the class and you're in better shape, moving up in weight can add resistance to make the class more challenging. Also realize the gloves protect the hands. Over time, hitting the bag 2 or 3 times a week like you should be, that your hands need that protection. Now let's also talk about proper wrapping of the wrist. Another thing that happens a lot in martial arts, or especially in the kickboxing classes, if you hit the bag improperly, you can hurt your wrist. And in the beginning, it's not that big a deal, because if you haven't trained before and you haven't learned how to properly punch, you're probably not hitting very hard. But over time, as you develop skills, there's more and more impact on your wrist and hands, and you want to make sure that you protect them. You definitely want hand wraps. Now, we utilize 1 weights in our program, and when we talk about 1 weights, that's the length of the wrap, because with the UBC, you're not fighting. Now, there are a lot of different wraps that go around the knuckles and through the thumb, and that's for design so when you're actually sparring and you hit the guy, with partial of the hand, you can, your wrist is still protected. But the fact that you're hitting a soft, heavy bag, you really don't need to over wrap. Your main focus is to protect your wrist, not the hand. That's what the gloves are for. So when you wrap your hand, I'm going to do a quick review. Now, one thing I will say, some of you out there might be working at some different kickboxing gyms, and the instructors kind of show their version of wrapping the hands, and they may have the longer wraps. I'm not going to tell you they're wrong, because they're not, because more protection is always the best. But if you're just looking to participate in the UBC classes utilizing the softer freestanding heavy bags, this works just fine. Now, when you do your wrap, you want to make sure that you wrap around your wrist 3 times. Nice, taut, but not too tight. 2 and 3. And then you want to come up the top of the hand. And what we're going to end up doing is making an X, because our goal is to limit the mobility of the wrist. And from here now, if we made that little line up, we go around the knuckles 3 times. When we wrap it around the knuckles 3 times, we're cutting the wrap in half with our knuckles. In other words, going right down the middle. Also real important here that we're not too tight. If we're too tight, you're going to end up having to unwrap your hands. So we're going to go around twice and then 3 times. So far we've gone 3 times around the wrist, up the top of the hand, 3 times around the knuckles, and now we're going to finish off that X. So again, by creating that X, a nice X on the top of the hand, I'm limiting the mobility of the wrist. Now, if you have a really large wrist, you may only go around your wrist a couple more times at this point. If you have a small wrist, you're going to want to go 2 or 3 times more around your wrist. It depends, and the middle is kind of depending on the size of your hand and your wrist. One thing, if you have to go around a few times, don't bunch it all up here. Go down and work your way back up again, because if you bunch it up here, you're going to have trouble getting your glove on and you're not going to have as much support. So once you've determined how many more times you want to go around your wrist, you are then going to finish off, and you're going to turn your palm up, and you're going to create that X again, and make it a nice clean line. See, I'm not here, kind of confuses me. It's a very clean line. I only go around the knuckles one more time, because again, I'm protecting the wrist, not the knuckles. And again, a nice X, and then I finish off around the wrist. Now, if you notice, I've made the mistake where my Velcro is down, and you know, I see some people do that and they unwrap their entire hand. If that happens to you, and usually you'll have on the wrap will say this side down, it'll follow the instructions, but you get distracted and you don't, just turn it. It's not going to make any difference whatsoever. You don't have to completely unwrap your hands, and then you always want to, again, make sure you finish off the wrist. So that's a nice solid, and you should feel it taut. You should definitely feel support there, but not too tight. Other things that help preventing injury to the wrist is making sure that when you hit the bag that you have a tight fist. Now, of course, we don't want to be tight, because tightness doesn't lead to good skills. But when you make contact, that's the one time we do want to tighten up and make sure we make a nice clenched fist. Okay, I'm Jim Graden. I'm at the new MA Fitness Center, the home of the original UBC, and I hope you enjoyed this segment on how to prevent injury from your wrist and making sure that you're utilizing the proper equipment.